Hello everyone, this is part 26 of What If Naruto Was Trained by the Kyuubi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Next day, afternoon. The pair completely slept through the entirety of the morning, before Naruto woke up in the beginning of the afternoon thanks to his most hated enemy, sunlight. Damn, it's worse than Oji-san's paperwork, he grumbled, his eyes getting attuned to the bright room, and pulled Hana, who was still in his arms, against him before kissing her forehead like the night before, smiling sadly that he had to wake up such a peaceful-looking mate. Hana-chan. He cooed out, shaking her lightly, only getting most of sleep for his efforts. Quote. Hana-chan, it's time to wake up. He continued before kissing her, which succeeded in awakening her. Naru-kun. She made through the side of her lips, since the rest was currently be kissed by her lover. Certainly a wake-up call I could get used to. She finished whimsically, her eyes now open and looking back at him lovingly with a smile. I'll remember that. He smiled back, giving her a chaste kiss, before releasing his entangled tails from her body, which caused her to shiver slightly from the draft in the room hitting her bare back. Hana-chan, we have something to talk about before we get up, he said, his voice taking on a serious note. What is it, Kishi, beloved? Naruto was rather nervous. He wasn't sure how his newly established mate would react when they just consummated their relationship and confessed their love. He let out a long sigh before looking into Hana's chocolate brown orbs. Natsu-chan and I plan to leave both Konoha and Fire Country today, more specifically. I'm coming with you, she interrupted commandingly, which surprised Naruto by both her tone and words. But, no. The moment we got together and you told me what your plans were, I knew that you'd be leaving soon after the invasion, because that was the whole reason you returned in the first place. Ever since then I have been speaking to Hokage-sama and my clan, especially Ka-san and my Ototo, about us. She began. And before the invasion began they finally agreed to what I wished. That if we became more than what we were, I would give up my title as clan heir, making Kiba the new heir, and I would resign as a Konoha shinobi with honor and then leave with you. She finished. Naruto was taken aback, and quite speechless at what she just told him. His mind took several minutes to wrap itself around the idea of what Hana told him, before it all sunk in. Hana-chan, you did all that for me? No, not for me, for us, he questioned, getting an affirmative nod. Hana-chan, do you really know what it is you're telling me? You're giving up your current life and lifestyle for me. Do you really want that? Hana couldn't help but giggle at his confused look, and stuttering questions. They made him seem cute. Hi, my Naru-kun. I know the implications of my actions. I'm giving up my current life to leave and live alongside the man I love. And in truth, there wasn't much in a debate for me to decide what I wanted. It was more of trying to convince my family to let me go, but after they heard my arguments they reluctantly but lovingly allowed it and gave both you and I their blessing. She explained, giving him a chaste kiss. He returned the kiss, and let a small smile grace his lips. I really don't know what to say, Hana-chan. I didn't think you thought about my actions so far ahead. In truth, I was completely terrified of this conversation, and how we would end up if wrong things were said. He sighed out, letting the stress that was on his shoulders leave him. But thankfully I have a new beautiful and smart mate who apparently is a great tactician as well. His smile grew to a playful grin. Damn right, she smirked. The pair lightly laughed for a few minutes at the lightening mood, before Naruto spoke again. If this is what you really want, Hana-chan, I certainly won't try to convince you to stay with your family. I love you and am very happy to know that you'll be right by my side with Natsu-chan when I leave this place. Quote. He kissed her, before turning to look at the clock on her nightstand. And while I'd love to stay lying here with you, there are a few things I need to take care of before we leave. So let's get ready, and then while I'm gone you can start packing, but pack light and only the essentials. I know the council is not going to like me leaving after everything, especially since they haven't talked with me, so we'll be traveling light and swift in case they send people after us. Hi. The pair kissed again before getting up from the bed, Naruto allowing Hana the sheet to cover herself, which she was all too glad to take, since she could see the still end form of her lover stretching and walking around in all his animalistic glory for her eyes to follow. The pair quickly got dressed, though Naruto had to use a henge since Hana completely destroyed his pants, who just looked on sheepishly at Naruto's pseudo-stern look after grabbing them. I don't know when exactly we'll be leaving, but when you feel a tremor rock the village, take it as a warning of my soon-to-be pickup. He warned, with a smile before kissing her passionately and heading out of her room, leaving her breathless. I'll be ready, Naru-kun, she reassured, before he left her room. Naruto walked quickly towards the exit of Hana's house, but was stopped by Kiba along the way. Hey Naruto-Nisan. Hey Kiba, how did last night go with Nei-chan? We talked and she was able to get many things off her chest about the situation. All in all, I think she is going to be fine. All she needs is a little time. The boy nodded. Ah, Anno, so, are you like my real Nisan now? He asked with a knowing glint in his eyes. Naruto stumbled before coughing a few times. We are mates now, if that is what you are asking, Kiba. The next moment Naruto lost sight of the young Inuzuka before feeling the air leave him when he saw Kiba connected to his stomach in an embrace. Cool. Now I can totally shove the fact my Nisan is like the strongest guy in the village to that damn Sasuke team. Kiba said ferally, making Naruto chuckle and pat the boy on the head. Hi, Gumendo Ototo, there are some matters I must attend to. However, I wished to see Car-san before I left. Know where she is? Hi. She left almost a half an hour ago for the daily council meeting ever since the invasion. Great. That saves me a TS, time, and a few headaches then, arigato Ototo. He thanked, hugging the small boy, before letting go. Naruto smiled at Kiba before turning and headed towards the door, but stopped when he heard Kiba speak. Enini-san, are you really going to leave? Naruto turned around with a quirked brow looking at Kiba, who looked sheepish. Gomen, I passed Nei-chan's room while you were talking and heard a little of your conversation. Naruto frowned slightly. I see. Unfortunately the answer is yes, Ototo. While I'd love to stay with my family here, I can't do so with how the rest of the village reacts to my presence. I know it'll be better for me to just leave and allow the village its peace. Plus I hold no love for Konoha aside from this clan and a few others. Kiba smiled sadly. I know. I just was being selfish in wanting you to stay. It's not fair you can't stay just because the villagers are idiots. Naruto looked sympathetically towards Kiba before moving back and hugging him again. Gomen Ototo, I wouldn't have minded staying, but things aren't always perfect and we must deal with the world as it comes at us. Hi. Kiba responded once they separated. Quote. Nisan, just make sure you take care of her. I know she is going with you, so keep her safe or Car-san and I will hunt you down. Hi. Naruto smiled at Kiba for his protectiveness of his sister. Grow strong, Ototo, I'm sure I'll be hearing your name in the future. I'll see if I can help with your training if I can ever visit NE. Hi arigato. The two embraced one last time before Naruto reached the door to the house. Take care of yourself, Ototo, sayonara. Finished with a smile. Sayonara Nisan. Naruto exited the house, closing the door behind him. He stretched out, before letting out a sigh, his smile falling into an emotionless expression before opening his eyes, which now held no joy like it did with Kiba moments before. Let's get this over with, I'm tired of this place, he thought before disappearing in a swirl of purple flames, heading toward the Namika's mansion. Council room. Good. Now that we've come to a decision about the Raikage's stay in Konoha until Niyugito is finally apprehended and returned is dealt with. The next topic is the investigation of the caping of one Inuzuka Hana and Uzumaki Kasumi. Many of us believe that it was an inside job to get them, especially since Uzumaki Kasumi is a child of the Uzumaki clan and we all know Orochimaru wanted someone from that clan for several years. And with an evacuation plan that is vastly different than the one he was privy to when he was still here, it seems to me our thoughts aren't unfounded. If any one of the investigating clans has any information, please. Sarutobi spoke before an explosion rocked the village. Quote. Anbu. The Hokage shouted, getting several Anbu to show up next to him. Investigate that explosion, make sure it isn't anything serious. Report back the moment you find out the details, understood. Hi Hoka. The Anbu chorused before the doors to the council room blasted open. The remaining Anbu appeared stationed around the room, their swords already drawn. Gomenasai for the interruption, Oji-san, but I couldn't help but overhear you and decide to help you out with that. A masculine voice called out from the hallway. Those within the room looked on, wondering who had the balls to interrupt a Konoha council meeting in such a manner unfitting of their status. Their answer was made quite clear when a pair of people entered the room. The council gasped, while the Anbu officers tensed at seeing both Naruto and Natsumi emerge, their tails swaying rapidly behind them. The Uzumaki family sons Kasumi, who were guests for this meeting, wondered why Naruto and his mate were here as well. Is that so, Naruto-kun, Natsumi-san? Sarutobi asked rhetorically. Hokage-sama ordered these two demons to be arrested. They both should have been the day it was ordered. One of the civilian council members shouted. I will do no such thing. If I deemed them a threat to us or this village, it would be a different story entirely. But Hokage-sama, enough. There will be no more discussion on the matter. More importantly, I'm curious as to the help you have, Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded and stepped deeper into the room, with everyone but Sarutobi and Chum tense and on edge since there were two demons in the room and their leader seemed to not care. I have essential information about the caping of one Inuzuka Hana and Uzumaki Kasumi. Naruto began, making everyone, especially Chum and the Uzumakis, perk up. While on my self-appointed mission to get them both back, I was able to interrogate an Oto shinobi that was stationed at the complex I found the Kunoiki in. And after some time I came to a few interesting details concerning Hana especially. And what details are those exactly? Danzo asked, trying to defuse the situation after feeling Naruto's piercing gaze upon him when he was spoke. It's funny you should ask that, Danzo. It seems that you have a traitor in the ranks of Konoha. More to the point, that traitor is in this very room. Haven't you wondered how the invasion was as successful as it had been despite my early warning and personal involvement? He probed, getting the result expected. Pandemonium, council members yelling about the lies the demon is spewing, while others stayed silent wondering who it could be if what he spoke was true. This traitor apparently has been in contact with Orochimaru for some time, and used the invasion for many things. Most important, the complete destruction and overhaul of Konoha, with them becoming the new Hokage and supreme dictator of the village. The other main plan was to attempt to get my allegiance under them because of Orochimaru caping my mate. They thought that since Konoha was the man's most powerful enemy, that I would join as a Konoha shinobi so that I could get Hana-chan back. Or at the very least ally myself with you while searching, since an army of hunter-nin is better than a single person. Unfortunately for him, he never came to realize just how strong I was. And by the time he did, it was too late to change his plans or get rid of the evidence. Hana-chan had already been taken by Orochimaru, so the evidence was long gone. For several months, and if I were to guess much longer, then that he has played all of you like his puppets, with him being the shadowy puppeteer. Using you all for his own means of creating the true Konoha. Naruto finished, with whispers quickly resounding through the room. While all this is good in theory, this council will require proof of your little hypothesis. Danzo calmly countered, though inwardly he was both worried and seething from his plans being found out by not only the demon, but one of the pieces he wanted to control to revive Konoha to what it should be, Konoha's ultimate demon weapon. That's where the good news is for all of you. I have tons, Naruto said with a smirk. Let me tell you a little story. Flashback. Previous day. So they are using yet another of Orochimaru's old laboratories. Kami-sama, just what kind of surveillance does the village do? He thought, wondering how the shinobi could miss so many buildings in their own land. Naruto continued to survey the old run-down complex that resided in a partially hidden part of Fire Country's vast forest. He got up from his crouching position beyond the tree line, brushing dirt off his clothes. Now, to find those two, he whispered to himself, before disappearing with only a small dust cloud in his wake. With Naruto's speed and his new knowledge of the complex's security, he easily made it inside with little trouble, but now the hard part began. Naruto snorted as the smell of rotten blood, pharmaceuticals, and death attacked his sense of smell without mercy. Quickly getting used to it, he began his search of the complex. He rushed through the hallways and corridors, not concerning himself with the foreign smells emanating from each. Come on Hana-chan, you gotta work with me here. He mentally pleaded, still trying to find the woman's unique scent, as he rounded the next corner of the dungeon-like complex. Suddenly Naruto's eyes widened for a split second before he stopped in his tracks, and audibly sniffed the air around him, ignoring the horrid smells of death that only grew stronger as he delved deeper into the complex. Kasumi. He breathed out, finally registering where he smelled that particular scent from and from whom. It seemed the young heiress, despite being a powerful kunoichi at such a young age, still enjoyed the feminine things in life, apparent by the weak scent of perfume that Naruto recalled smelling coming from her during their match. Naruto followed the scent, quickly twisting and turning along the hallways, until he finally came to the hallway where the scent was the strongest and stopped before turning the corner. Knowing Orochimaru as well as Naruto, had he guessed he wouldn't leave such a valuable specimen as Kasumi without constant guard. He closed his eyes, and concentrated on his enhanced hearing, his fox ears twitching every so often from the strain. Let's see, he thought to himself, as he listened to the number of heartbeats within the next hallway. 1, 2 next to the door, and a third on the other wall facing the door itself. He concluded. Now how to take him out without making a mess. He mused before his hands clenched into fists unconsciously. Naruto looked down, feeling his hands, and smirked ferally at his body's answer to his problem. He prepared himself for a moment before turning the corner and ran towards the unsuspecting guards. He was able to get the drop on them, stopping in the middle of the hallway between all three. The shock of his presence giving him enough time to chop one of the guards near the door, in the end making him fall unconscious. The other two were quick to respond to the threat, now brandishing kunai, but Naruto still had enough time to take out the guard that faced the door with her open palm, strike in the middle of his sternum, the power behind the blow completely crushing his ribcage, sending the bone shards into his heart and lungs. Thankfully Naruto guessed this, and with a quick twist of his body turned so he was behind the now-s shinobi, with a hand covering his mouth so the blood the man had just thrown up shot into his hand without alerting anyone from the sound or sight of it. He let go of the corpse, and jumped out of the way of the final guard, who seemed to be the weakest fortunately for Naruto's case. He grabbed the man's extended arm that failed to el the Hanyu, and in a few submission moves had the man's arm pinned behind his back, his own kunai pressed against the nape of his en. Despite the man's position, Naruto was satisfied to know the man wasn't afraid of him, which made the Hanyu smile, before whispering a short conversation into his ear, which by the way the man's body shivered wasn't a conversation that ended well for him. Now do as I said and I'll let you live, unless you're some kind of masochist and would only enjoy something as painful as that, Naruto ordered, with the man nodding vigorously in understanding. Naruto pushed the man to the steel door that held Kasumi within, and let go of his arm. He then moved himself to the side of the door so as to not be seen while keeping the kunai against the Junin's en. The guard knocked on the door, and recited Naruto's speech to the guard inside, while Naruto was concentrating to see how many guards were with Kasumi, which after a moment discovered it was surprisingly only one. Naruto's attention was brought back when he heard the click of the lock on the door, and it slowly opened. Naruto immediately pushed his hostage through the door for several reasons. 1. To surprise the hell out of the guard inside to see a comrade fly into the room. 2. It would serve to knock the guy out when he went face first into the far wall thanks to Naruto's strength, and lastly in case the guard set a trap. Luckily no trap was set, and Naruto shot into the room finding the surprised man looking back at him. Naruto rushed him, only giving the man enough time to grab a few shuriken and launch them at him. Naruto didn't waste time dodging the weapons and just took them with a grunt before sweeping the man's feet, knocking him to the ground, with his kunai immediately against the Oto shinobi's en lest the man get any ideas. Who the hell are you? The man said, knowing that if he shouted his life was over, plus shouting was nearly impossible lest he cut his own tea. Unfortunately I'm the one asking questions, Junin-san, Naruto answered emotionlessly. Fine then, what do you want? 'Cause if you think I'm going to tell you anything then you can go F yourself. No need for such language. I am merely here for the kunoiki ukped, and perhaps some information. He argued before he smiled demonically, his fangs almost glistening in the promise of pain. Now if you are a good little Junin and cooperate with me I will let you live. If not you can join your little friend whose ribcage I completely crushed, your choice. He announced his ultimatum. The Junin narrowed his eyes angrily. Don't F with me. Even if I cooperate, you'll just K me anyway, so why should I help? Naruto just sighed in annoyance, before looking harshly at the man right in the eyes. Because unlike you and shinobi like you I have some semblance of honor. So if I promise to do something and it's within my power to do I will do it. Therefore I will make a deal with you. If you cooperate with me throughout my rescue I shall release you under your own supervision. Naruto said harshly. The Junin stared at Naruto checking to see if there was any semblance of deception in his voice, body language or gaze. And to his surprise he couldn't seem to find any. Of course that didn't mean he would trust him farther than he could throw him, but it did mean he could use it to his advantage later somehow. Fine, if that's your bargain I accept. Good, he said in a chipper voice, before looking towards the back of the cell to see a bound, gagged, bruised and slightly bloody Kasumi who had been silent the entire time, her gaze wide in many emotions the most prominent ones being confusion, and hope. Kasumi, other than those cuts and bruises are you alright? He asked warmly, getting a slight nod from the air. Good, now as for you. He turned back to the Junin, and pulled out some ninja wire. Tie yourself up. The Junin did as was told and bound his legs, and one hand before Naruto did the rest. Good you seem to understand the rules. He mocked, before grabbing the man by his flak jacket and pulled him near to Kasumi. Now tell me everything you know about how and why they were KPED. He ordered as he began to untie Kasumi. What makes you think I know? I'm just a Junin stationed here to keep an eye on the brat, he answered annoyed. Now don't be that way unless you want the deal to end. As for the reason I know is because I know whomever the Junin was that took Kasumi here wouldn't have kept silent about it. He'd have probably told everyone he knew he was the one to capture an Uzumaki considering the reward he probably got from Orochimaru. The Junin couldn't help but chuckle lightly since Naruto hit the nail on the head. The day the girls were brought there the Junin who caught Kasumi told anyone he could it was him. The guy was certainly excited I'll admit that. He confessed. Fine. The guy's story went like this, he had just killed a group of Leaf Shinobi, and was heading towards the academy. He was a rather sick bastard if you want my honest opinion, but I digress. As he headed there apparently some fighting caught his eye and he went to investigate. Apparently little Hiro-san over here was dispatching a group of our comrades while protecting some ramen chef cook and his Musumi. He asked what the hell the girl was doing, and her only answer was, protecting something important her Oni-chan. Unfortunately the guy wasn't exactly the sentimental type nor liked shinobi who were, so they tussled for a while, with him eventually winning and captured her. Though he realized that the reason she even fought as long as she did was to give enough time for those civilians to escape cause when he looked for them they were long gone. He explained. The man's story shocked Naruto, he quickly turned to Kasumi to see if she could confirm the story, but noticed that she was looking away from Naruto with the slightest blush on her cheeks. Naruto wasn't quite sure what to say, he knew Kasumi's mentality towards him had changed slightly especially with that hug she gave him after Minato spoke to her mother. But still to go out of her way to protect Tsuki and Ayami because she remembered what he said back in their first meeting in the ramen stand. Naruto was floored at her bravery and unfortunately now wasn't the time for thanks, that would have to wait until after they were out of enemy territory. And what about the other kunoichi? He asked. Her. Quote. He couldn't help but chuckle in a perverse way which made Naruto harden his gaze not liking it one bit. She unfortunately I don't have all the details on about what happened. All I can tell you is what Orochimaru-sama told all Otojunin the day before the invasion. He told us that if a Konoha Anbu officer with a strange symbol on the forehead part of their mask came up to us, and also had a woman with them matching an Inuzuka's description to just grab her without question and leave immediately. That son of A.B. Naruto mentally roared, knowing exactly what the symboled Anbu signified, but reeled in his anger knowing it wasn't a good idea to be found yet without Hana. Your AS man when I get back. He promised. I see. He let out an angered sigh. Do you know where she is being held now? Hi. Then let's go. He ordered before taking out some bandages and wrapped them around the man's mouth as a gag. Quote. Kasumi come over here please. He ordered softly. The Uzumaki heir moved closer to him, but still keeping her gaze away from his, not knowing how he reacted to hearing what she had done. She hoped he was happy and grateful she saved his friends, but didn't really know. She gasped slightly when she felt his hand rest against her chest and forehead, feeling strange from having a comforting touch instead of the violent ones she had gotten used to for the past 2.5 days. Her gasp turned into a content sigh, when she felt Naruto's chakra begin to seep into her, knitting her skin back together and massaging her bruises until the blackened skin turned white again as the pain receded. Arigato, she whispered, making Naruto smile. Hi. Now let's get Hana-chan and get out of here, he said, pulling he to her feet, before grabbing the Junin and flipped him on his shoulders like a sack of potatoes. Which way? He asked, getting the directions via head point from the gagged hostage. The trio swerved in and out of the hallways, maneuvering past the few guards they did find. It seemed Orochimaru only set up enough guards to defend this place until someone could get the kunoichi out of there. After some time of following the man's directions, hesitation and fear began to creep into Naruto. They had done nothing but go deeper and deeper into the complex, which usually meant prisoners here were either S, or no one cared what happened anymore. He unconsciously sped up from this feeling, but noted that Kasumi didn't waver despite just being healed, making him slightly proud of the girl. Just then a scent invaded his nose, his reaction almost as if he was just punched in the face. This smell. Naruto knew it all too well, a smell he had the unfortunate luck of coming across when he was 5. The smell of sweat, blood and S mixed into one, a smell Naruto would never forget. And unfortunately it was originating from where the Junin seemed to be leading them. Naruto's breath hitched in his tea at the possible implications and shot forward, and at the moment mentally thankful that Kushina had taught her children so well since Kasumi was able to keep up if just barely with his speed. He gave up on the directions the Junin was giving him, and simply followed this pervasive scent, an ominous feeling in the pit of his stomach telling him the smell had to do with Hana. He ran through several more corridors before what he feared finally hit him, literally in the nose. Hana's scent, which was heavily interwoven with the scent he'd been following. He stopped after rounding the next corner, knowing that she was in the room at the end of the hall. The trio began the slow walk towards the door, each step taken sounding like 100 explosive notes going off in Naruto's head as fear and apprehension gripped his heart like a vice. They finally reached the door, when Naruto put the Junin down and placed his hand on the door before taking a long breath. Kami-sama, if you have any good karma saved up for me after what happened to me as a kid, Onagai, use that to show me something other than what my heart is telling me I'll witness beyond this door. He mentally prayed, before closing his eyes and opened the door with a creak. A long moment passed before he opened his eyes and took a step inside, his nose immediately bombarded with that same scent, only 100 times stronger thanks to him being at the epicenter. But his brain never registered the smell. No, the only thing his brain registered at the moment was what his eyes were showing him, a scene that will haunt his nightmares for the rest of his life. Warning. In the middle of the room, chained by all 4 limbs to a flat slab of stone that she was limply lying on with the only light in the room coming from a dim overhanging lamp above, was one Inuzuka Hana. His Hana. She laid there motionless, her usual glimmering eyes now husks of what they once were, which just stared towards the dark ceiling, unblinking. Her once pristine body, save for a few scars she received while on duty, now a shell of what it once was, black and blues lined her body and face. Cuts, scars, and scratches marred her body, especially along her chest, stomach, hips and thighs. Probably when whomever did this cut or sped off her clothes. And to make things even more unbearable for the Hanyu, caked all over the Inuzuka heiress was the essence of all the males who had probably visited her. The juices seemed to ooze down her body onto the slab of stone, taunting him with their existence on her. There seemed to be almost no part of her that the essence hadn't gotten its tainted hands on. From the top of her hair to the soles of her feet, even her most private of areas that not even he had the honor, privilege, and pleasure of touching yet was spared from these monsters' taint. There was so much of it that it not only slid down her own body onto the stone, but it even oozed down the sides of the stone where several pools had formed. Naruto's hand unconsciously gripped the handle of the steel door so hard the door began to groan in what one could almost consider pain from the sheer inhuman strength currently G-sping it as Naruto simply stared on. Oni sa, oh my Kami-sama. Kasumi began before covering her mouth and nose from gasping at the sight and throwing up at the smell, after she pushed him aside to see what was within the room. Her outburst caused Naruto's mind to reboot and register the situation they were all in and let out the breath he had been holding in, as well as release his grip on the door, which groaned once more in seeming appreciation. Naruto grabbed the still-bound Junin and threw him inside the room, closing the door behind Kasumi and himself. Once locked, he rushed to Hana's side. With no care about the guards sensing his chakra, he swiftly broke the chains bounding her to the stone. He began to vigorously wipe off the taint that stained and caked her body, noting now that he was closer and having a better angle two things. The first, that Hana's private areas were also still dribbling out the monster's essence. Naruto clenched his teeth in rage of what these monsters did to her. Was it not enough to savagely her but to release inside her as well? From that moment Naruto made a solemn vow to himself, that aside from the Junin he had bound, every Oto shinobi in the complex would a very painful, and agonizing deaths. The second thing was that blood seemed to have mixed in with the essence, in some places as well. He guessed from not only from wounds inflicted upon her, but ones she inflicted upon her assailants. That fact made Naruto smile despite himself, knowing that even in a dim situation Hana didn't give up. That she fought, tooth and nail to keep these men from having her. End warning. Naruto had finally finished getting much of the taint off her body, and was now able to see the extent of her injuries, which thankfully weren't severe, mainly bruising across her body as well as some cuts, but nothing life-threatening. Knowing she wasn't in any physical danger, he decided he needed to see how she was mentally doing as well as having her know he was there and she was now safe. He had realized that her look from before was caused by her own mind shutting down while trying to protecting itself from what she had gone through. He moved up to her head and cupped her still slick face in his hands as he leaned in so his face was atop her own. Hana-chan. He called out. Hana-chan, it's me Naruto. No response. Any Hana-chan, it's me Naruto, come on, come back to me. Yet again no response. Hana-chan, come on love, you gotta work with me here. Still nothing. Damn it Hana-chan, I didn't come all the way here to save a vegetable, I came here to save the Inuzuka clan heir, a strong, proud kunoichi, and someone I love, now get your ass up. He commanded. Naruto waited to see if an aggressive approach worked, and with a sigh of relief it did. He could see the flame of life come back to reflect in her brown eyes. But what he didn't expect is how she would respond when she did. No sooner had the flame appeared did she begin to thrash about. Her legs kicked into the air, while her arms reached out and began clawing, scratching, and spinning against anything she could grab, which unfortunately for Naruto was his unsuspecting face and arms. No, get the F away from me. You're thing wrong if you think I'm just gonna let you me like some kind of beast. I already ked one of UFS and I swear to Kami-sama if you touch me'll thing KU too. You hear me'll thing KU. She roared with a passion that promised she would go through with her threat until her breath, as she continued to claw away at Naruto's face, his skin spinning off under her sharp claw-like nails, his own blood trailing down his face landing on her body as it sped off. Naruto took the beating, and bit back the pain she was causing him. It was the least he could do for her considering her condition as well as it being his fault she was like this in the first place. She continued to scream, and Naruto would have allowed it to continue on until she was either satisfied or grew too tired. However, with her screams throughout the complex, time was now of the essence to get them out of there alive. Naruto dodged the next incoming swipes from her and in a swift motion pulled her into a sitting position as he wrapped his still bleeding arms around her, embracing her to his chest, their heads next to each other. Hana-chan, it's me Naruto, please stop, it's me. He whispered lovingly in her ear, hoping that hearing his words and voice would rein in her instinctual urge of self-preservation. I said get the F away. She screamed again after feeling him embrace her, and when she felt his head next to hers she turned and sunk her fangs viciously into his prone N. Naruto was actually surprised and bit back a small cry of pain when he felt her fangs into his N. He quickly moved his one arm to press her head against his N, lest she pull back and a chuck of F from him. Hana-chan, cough, it's me Naruto, you know me. Come on love, cough, you gotta snap out of it. Remember, I saved you from Kof Mizuki, then I came back to Konoha and we started to cough date. Remember the night at the park? He spoke between coughing up blood from the N wound that Hana couldn't release. Hana continued her struggle as her mind was still on autopilot, but Naruto's words were beginning to get through despite her best efforts, a few of his words causing her mind to flash through her memories. Mizuki, making her remember the day that traitors stole the Forbidden Scroll, ked her teammates, and then Naruto coming to help her. date, making her remember the day they met in Konoha and the talk they had in her home as well as him asking her out. Park, making her remember the actual first date they had, remembering the nice dinner they shared, and then the walk in the park, and finally their first kiss. Finally, as if a haze had been lifted from her brain, her mind came back to consciousness, and she immediately felt the loving embrace Naruto was holding her in, as well as his whispering words of wanting her back and apologizing for not being there sooner. The moment she realized it really was Naruto, her clawing hands stopped their rampage, her fangs loosened their GS, and her eyes began to tear at the rims. Naruto immediately felt the change in her actions and hoped she was now herself. "Hana-chan, you finally back with me?" he asked, feeling slightly lightheaded from all the blood loss, but still feeling her nod slightly in affirmation. "I'm so glad. I've been so worried about you," he confessed, pulling her even closer against him protectively, her own arms now wrapping around him as well. "Gomenasai, Hana-chan, if only I hadn't left you. He apologized before stopping when he felt her shake her head against his as well as feel her tongue lap at his wound apologetically. "I'm alright, Hana-chan, and arigato, I'm just so glad you're safe and back in my arms." He hugged her again. "But now that you're with me it's going to be okay, I'll get us out of here. But I need you to release my and arigato for staying there so I don't bleed as badly." Hana nodded at his request, and released her grip on his a few spurts of blood shooting into the air before he covered it with an already glowing purple hand. He laid her back onto the stone, and just cupped her cheek with his free hand, with her doing the same. "Gomenasai, Naruto-kun," she apologized with a weak voice for all the wounds she could see she inflicted on him. His face was a complete bloody mess, as were his arms. If it hadn't been for such a serious situation, Naruto would have joked about having such a hellcat in bed. "If this is all I have to go through to get you back, it's well worth the pain," he argued with a smile, making her smile weakly as well. "Don't worry, Hana-chan, I'm getting you out of here, so for now rest, I know you need it he ordered softly, getting a nod in response. "Hi. But I just want you to know one thing." She paused, pulling his face next to hers, placing their foreheads together. "Throughout all of this, I didn't let them have the sick satisfaction of making me see, not even once. That's a right only reserved for you," she confessed. Naruto smiled warmly, and nodded gently before kissing her. "I know you didn't, Hana-chan. It would take a lot more than this to break someone like you." Quote. He agreed, kissing her again. "Now get some sleep, and when you wake up you'll be home, I promise," he ordered, with Hana only smiling at him again in appreciation before pulling back and allowing her body to fall limp and her eyes closed, trying to regain some of her lost strength. "It's time to go," he ordered, more to himself than anyone else, his voice now void of all the happiness it held with Hana, as 10 cage bushins puffed into existence. "3 of you grab them. The rest of you get in a circle formation around them," he ordered harshly, before grabbing a scroll and popped it open, before hand-sealing. "Chishio Bushin no Jutsu, blood clone technique," he said, a puff of smoke erupting atop the open scroll which a moment ago held several hundred vials of his own blood in them. "You lead them back to Konoha. Their safety is your top priority. Any Oto shinobi who stand in your way. The methods of death'll leave up to you. Do not fail me," he ordered. The Chishio Bushin nodded in understanding. The Bushin quickly made a Rasengan and blasted away the far wall, before it and the rest jumped through, heading towards the forest. Once Naruto saw they were out of sight, any semblance of emotion left his eyes and face. He faced the door, awaiting the 50 or so Oto shinobi that were assigned to the complex to come. He was not disappointed when a moment later the door flew off its hinges and several shinobi rushed in the room, with many more littering the corridor behind. "Who the hell are you?" the Junin in the front of the group demanded. Suddenly a blast of ki shot through not only the room and corridor but the entire complex. It was so potent, and the reason being that Naruto just released all 5 of his controllable tails at once. Not only were the shinobi being affected in various ways, ranging from losing consciousness to having to struggle to continue breathing, but the complex itself was as well obvious by the creaking of the steel. Naruto took a step forward, getting the attention of the still conscious and by now mostly scared shinobi, who warily took a step back. "I am retribution for what you have done to those kunoichi. I am vengeance for the pain and suffering you've caused them. But most importantly, I'm your executioner." Naruto's demon blood affording him a dark, deep and gruff voice reminiscent of a true demon's. Matt, one of the shinobi shouted. We apologize. It was wrong of us to do that. We'll repent. Give us a chance. The man begged, which only infuriated Naruto more, knowing full well Kasumi and Hana begged for them to stop what they did, so he'd simply return their hospitality, permanently. Say hello to the Shinigami for me, Ne. He requested before flexing his clawed hands and then disappeared from sight. The next thing to be heard was the blood-curdling screams of 50 men being said. With Bushins, it had been nearly an hour since they began their trek, and thankfully nothing had occurred. However, that soon changed when the Bushins turned back from where they came from, feeling an immense use of chakra. The reason becoming obvious when they saw a large purple beam shooting up from the ground into the sky. Though with them being so close they could tell that the beam was actually spinning much like a cylinder-shaped tornado. Damn, the boss actually used it. The clone holding Kasumi said, slightly surprised. What did you expect? You all know how he feels about Hana, as well as what he felt when he saw what happened to her. Personally, if he hadn't used that jutsu, I'd have been surprised. The Chishio Bushin retorted. What is that jutsu? The still conscious Kasumi questioned, clearly awed by not only the odd beauty of the beam but also the sheer destructive power behind it that even she could tell from so far away. It's the strongest jutsu the boss has ever created. It's one of his variants based on the Rasengan, as well as obviously the strongest. The Blood Bushin answered. He really could have killed me at any time during our match, couldn't he? There is no question that you wouldn't have won. He answered, though noticing her slightly sullen look continued on. But if it makes you feel any better, he complimented you on your strength. You even made him release 2 of his 3 normal chakra limiters. And to do that at your age and only as a genin is no small feat. Junin level ninja have been killed by him using less. Arigato, she answered with a proud smile and an embarrassed blush. Alright, the light show's over, let's go, he'll catch up with us soon. He ordered, sending them back on their way. No sooner had they started again did a flash of orange jet past them, with Naruto appearing several yards ahead. Any problems? He questioned. No. Smooth sailing, boss. What's with the scroll? The Blood Bushin asked, noting the large scroll snuggled in Naruto's arm. Good. I'll take Hana-chan then. As for the scroll, a bit of evidence I can probably use later that I found at the complex before I blew it up. He answered, grabbing the now cloaked and sleeping woman in his arms. Let's go, it'll take several more hours to get to Konoha from here. Those several hours had passed quickly and silently, with no problems other than Naruto having to recall more Bushins along the way when they ran out of chakra. They were finally about 10 minutes away from the gates when Naruto spoke up. Ne Kasumi. Hi. I just wanted to ask why you protected Tsuki and Ayami. She looked away. No. Because you told my family and they were important to you. She answered with a stutter, feeling embarrassed and apprehensive talking to her brother in a normal conversation like this when only a month ago she was ready to kill him. I see. Then arigato for protecting them on my behalf and gomen for not doing so myself and you getting captured as a result. It's alright, I choose to help them on my own. It's why my family wasn't there. They were still absorbing and dealing with your two-sans speech. She explained. I see, still arigato. Now we are close to the gate, Chi. He called out, getting the clone's attention. Take our friend here over to the mansion secretly, I can't have him getting captured. He ordered. Hi, the clone retorted before grabbing the Oto shinobi who looked angrily at Naruto, thinking he had betrayed him. I'm keeping you alive, Junin-san, but unfortunately for you I have a feeling I'm going to need your testimony later. So after you do, that is when I shall release you from my persons and fulfill my end of our bargain. So just sit tight and don't do anything stupid. The Junin grunted disapprovingly, but knew there wasn't much he could do. They soon reached the gates, and the Chishio Bushin cut off from the group to climb over the wall secretly, as all but Naruto and the cage Bushin holding Kasumi dispelled. Welcome home, Hana-chan, Naruto whispered to the still sleeping woman who had unconsciously snuggled closer into his protective hold. Flashback end. That is it for my testimony. Naruto concluded, sighing after he finished his story. That story is quite convenient, and with Kasumi-san and Hana-san absent from these proceedings, it'll be hard to corroborate your story. Danzo countered. Not so my one-eyed, one-armed friend. Naruto joked, mentally smiling when he saw Danzo grit his teeth at the jab, before he snapped his fingers. The council looked on strangely, wondering what the signal meant. Their answer came quickly when another Naruto entered through the doors of the room with a tied-up Oto shinobi being dragged behind him. The clone dispersed, leaving the real Naruto to unbind the man, allowing him to stand up, but his legs and arms still bounded. This councilman out of women was an Oto shinobi who was stationed at the complex I found the Kunoiki in. He was also the one whom I interrogated and brought all the way back here just to testify on my behalf during these proceedings. Naruto explained, before looked at the man. Tell them everything, he commanded. The man nodded, before his gag was cut. The man quickly told the council everything he told Naruto, making many of the council listen on in shock that Danzo had been a traitor to their village. The man finished his speech, and was silenced by Naruto. Danzo, what do you have to say for yourself? Sarutobi asked, while inwardly leering at the man. He had been a thorn in his side for far too many years, but with this new incident his life was pretty much over. Danzo stood with a deliberate slowness. That I'm saddened to see my fellow councilman out of women and Hokage actually believing such a farce. In case you haven't realized it, the interrogated person was one of our enemies not long ago. Not only that, but the very being that brought him to us is standing right before you. Those facts present, who is to say that they aren't acting together to just get not only myself killed, but to have the people of Konoha begin doubting their own loyalties and trust between one another. Konoha has stayed as the strongest hidden village because of the ideals we have set down and used for generations. If we start to doubt each other now, we may lose that place. Danzo coolly replied, inwardly smirking when he saw many of the council being swayed by his words of Konoha's pride as being out of staying the strongest village, as well as the hatred for Naruto and Oto. Very nice speech, Danzo, you have a tongue of pure silver. If wars could be won on words alone, I would certainly want you to be on my side, and it would be no wonder why Konoha has been at the top for so long. But unfortunately for you, that isn't the case. Words can only take a person so far before other variables catch up and take him out at the knees. Naruto retorted before opening a scroll pocket on his flak jacket and tossed the scroll within to the Hokage. That is the remaining proof I have, letters, docents, agreements and other such paperwork that show Orochimaru and Danzo's connections. He explained, getting more gasps from the council and stares towards Danzo who was gritting his teeth. Anbu, arrest this man, Danzo ordered, slamming his cane on the ground. Everyone waited to see what would happen, and after a few moments when nothing did, Naruto spoke up. Gomen Danzo, if you were expecting your root Anbu to come to your aid like usual, I'm afraid your luck has run out. That explosion you felt and heard a little while ago was caused by Natsu-chan and I. And the thing that exploded was your secret Anbu base along with your NE offices. Your little private army is gone. It's true, it's all right here in these docents. Sarutobi exclaimed while reading, getting the attention of the council, before he looked back towards Danzo, his eyes as cold as ice, making everyone remember why he was the leader of a shinobi village and not just an old man. Danzo, the evidence is undeniable. You have acted behind Konoha's back with a S-rank missing nin, with plans to incite a coup d'etat. Anbu, arrest him and send him to Ibiki until his sentence is determined. Sarutobi barked out. No. Naruto's voice roared, making the room slightly shake and many of the council cower. Naruto, Gomen, but this is how traitors are dealt with. Sarutobi reasoned, not sure why Naruto argued. Gomen Oji-san, but Danzo is mine. He said, his tone one of finality. What do you mean? I already told this council the first time you called me here. If anyone, their social standing be damned, tried to harm those important to me, I will have retribution as I see fit. Not only has Danzo put those important to me in danger for countless years with his dealings with Orochimaru, but he incited the invasion that occurred only days ago. And to top it off, gave Hana-chan to him to get me under his control. Therefore his life is now mine to do with as I see fit, and no one is going to stop me. If you do, your sentence will be the same as his own. Naruto explained, staring coldly at Danzo who was looking very worried. Sarutobi frowned at the man's words. Naruto, I know how you must be feeling, but Danzo must have a proper trial to be sentenced with a fitting punishment. Naruto barked in laughter at Sarutobi's words. Gamenoji-san, but no one save a select few know how I feel and you aren't one of them. So unless in the next 30 seconds you go through several years of beatings, rotten food, worn out clothes, hate, and discrimination, you don't really have much leverage on stopping me from doing what I will to this man. Besides, with treason being the charge, you'll just K him anyway, so I'm simply skipping the middleman. Sarutobi opened his mouth to retort, but closed it soon after knowing that Naruto was right. The only person that could truly stop Naruto now was someone who was similar to himself. With silence reigning, Naruto began his slow ascent towards Danzo. Each step almost deafening everyone at what each step meant, one step closer to Danzo's execution, or worse. Danzo looked on with sweat already brimming his brow at the implications. He looked towards those within the room, his eyes looking to anyone for help. With his secret army gone, he only had these people to call upon for protection now. Why are you all just standing there for? You're going to allow these demons to do whatever they want to us? Question mark. You may think I'm a traitor, but I've helped protect this village more often than any of you. Are you willing to allow these outsiders free rein to do what they want in our village? Question mark. Quote. He yelled, expecting some of the more bolder council members to step up and try to stop Naruto because of their hatred of Kyuubi. But he was surprised to see no one moving, and the civilian council looking away, some ashamed and others scared. I see. You're all a bunch of spineless pencil-pushing cowards. And you wonder why I wanted Orochimaru to destroy Konoha. You're all too weak-willed to do what must be done to bring Konoha to the pinnacle of strength. If I was Hokage, this village would have no rival. No one would dare attack for fear of us. But that old monkey got the job instead and wanted peace. Offering olive branches to our most hated enemies to gain peace instead of conquering them. This village will fall. And when it does, you will all realize your mistakes on being too damn soft to do what should be done. And when you do, I'll be laughing at you from my grave. Danzo roared, his true views of Konoha coming out. Naruto finally reached the CS-pled man, who just finished his speech and stared Naruto down with what probably remained of his final bits of courage. Naruto just smirked evilly and grabbed the man by the tee, before flinging him behind him. Danzo sailed through the air before hitting the wall near the Hokage's desk. But instead of falling due to gravity, several kunai embedded themselves into his loose-fitting robes, keeping him pinned to the wall. Naruto then appeared standing just below Danzo's hanging form with his back to the council, Shinku Kaijin in his hand as his tails flailed agitatedly. Danzo, for all your bravado, and preaching of a better Konoha than the one currently standing, you've failed to realize that for people who live here. Peace is something they want. They don't want to be waging war constantly to fight and inevitably lose everything they have because the leaders don't know how to negotiate, because their answers are always violence. You may think peace makes people weak and lax, and while I admit that it is true, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Humans beings weren't created to fight despite what you may believe. And although constantly competing with one another, the elemental countries don't always have to decide everything with war and violence. If everything was, then by the end of the war, nothing would be left. People would all but be extinct, the lands would be barren, animals would be gone, so what would be left to rule over for the winners? Naruto said wisely. Danzo couldn't help but laugh at Naruto's naive words. So it seems that you really are human, at least partly. Because I know a chaotic demon like Kyuubi would laugh at your childish words about how the world works. The strong rule the weak, while the weak serve the strong, that is how the world works. Danzo stated before feeling something his stomach, making him grunt in pain. Danzo looked down to see the sword Naruto held in his stomach, with Naruto's face twisted to one of fury. Do not presume to know the reasons why Natsu-chan did what she did 12 years ago. You have far too many sins weighing on you compared to her to put her in the same league as you. And I will not allow you to speak of her with such an insolent tongue. Naruto spoke, his tone completely making many who heard it shiver. It seems we have nothing more to discuss, Danzo. You are set in your ways and will not change. Not that you'd have the time to. Naruto said, spinning the sword from him, a small spray of blood hitting the floor. Quote, I want everyone to watch this, because this is what will happen to those who mess with my family and those important to me. Naruto explained coldly. Naruto took a step back, before slashing his sword a few times. Instantly Danzo's kimono on his torso fell to the ground, revealing his slightly chubby upper body to all those watching. Naruto then plunged his sword inside Danzo's stomach another 8 times, causing more blood to fall to the ground and down the man's stomach. Then in an odd turn of events, Naruto walked back up to the man, and began to heal the wounds. After that, Naruto just stepped back, allowed his sword to disappear, and just started at Danzo, who began to twist and writhe in pain as his small groans of pain grow louder and louder each passing moment. What is he doing? Is he just gonna tee him with pain until he SS? Inoki whispered to those clan heads near him. That's exactly what he is doing. Hiashi stated flatly, his Byakugan activated. What do you mean, Hiashi? He just healed Danzo, you saw it. Chooser spoke. True, but apparently he only healed what we could see. Hiashi on the other hand can see what we cannot. Shikaku answered. Hiashi, what exactly is going on? Chum said, wanting to know exactly what was happening to the bastard that stole her daughter. He only healed Danzo's skin. His stomach is a whole other story. Hiashi answered, allowing them to realize the implications on their own. Why? You mean, hi, he is allowing Danzo's stomach acid to leak out through those 9 cuts and literally eat away Danzo from the inside out. Shikaku interrupted Inoki. Danzo's screams began to reach their peak as he felt more and more of the acid leak out and dribble along his insides. Shirring, burning, scorching, melting, the intense heat, the sheer pain. Danzo never thought anything in the world could feel this painful. And to make it worse, it was an agonizingly slow process which made seconds seem like hours. How does it feel, Danzo? Naruto questioned savagely. I won't give you the satisfaction, you damn thing demon. He shouted, before his head lurched forward and coughed up a copious amount of blood which splashed across the floor in front of Naruto's feet. That's fine, Danzo, keep up your bravado, it is no concern of mine. I know exactly what you're feeling, sir. I have no need for you to describe it to me, I was simply curious. By now I'd say the acid has already begun eating away at your intestines, and a pool of the already liquefied muscles, tissue and organs is forming as well. Naruto said emotionlessly, while Danzo continued to scream in pain, Naruto's words describing exactly what he was feeling, his organs melting while a feeling of a pool of liquid fire filled his midsection. This is barbaric. One of the civilian council members whispered. But you know we can't stop him, not only is he a demon but that woman is too. Another stated. We have to do something. We can't leave them to do what they want. This is our village, and he is supposed to be our weapon, like Danzo-sama said. Another cut off the other two. You're free to try, but I don't suggest it, Shikaku said, after overhearing them. It's almost over. I suggest those with a weak stomach grab a bag, because this won't be pretty. Naruto shouted to everyone above Danzo's continual gurgled screams of bloody as blood dribbled down the sides of his mouth, and down his nasal passages. Danzo's screams seemed to intensify tenfold in the next moment, lurching more blood over the floor. The council looked on in morbid curiosity at what was happening to him, and for a few minutes nothing changed. But after a little while a very low noise began to resound in the room, a sound of something sizzling as if one was cooking bacon. They each searched for the origin, before Hiashi simply pointed towards the screaming Danzo. When everyone looked back they realized what the sound was. In the center of Danzo's stomach appeared a small hole in the skin that seemed to be expanding slightly every so often, but that wasn't the only thing. From the hole an orange liquid seemed to be expelled which dribbled down Danzo's skin. Upon further inspection the liquid was actually what was causing the sizzling sound, and what was sizzling was Danzo's own F where the liquid touched. It seemed that there was finally enough stomach acid to eat its way through the outer F, and allowing the liquid to expel from the man's innards. The coloration a combination of the red blood and the yellow stomach acid. As the sizzling continued and grew louder in decibels as the skin was eaten away, Danzo's gurgled screams intensified once more, feeling that his F was burning both inside and out. As they continued to watch, the hole became even bigger and bigger while drooping down like the melting of a wax painting, which transversely allowed more of the acid to leak out and burn a trail down his body. After a few moments more Danzo's screams lowered in intensity and slowed in their occurrence until they were finally no more, and the man's head bowed down and hung there. The final picture of the traitor hanging from his sleeves with a gaping hole in his stomach where Muscle, organs and bone could be seen partially melted and bubbling, oozing bile with every last remnant spasm of the body. While the last remnants of acid dribbled down his scorched pelvis, privates, and legs which could now be seen thanks to the acid eating away at the remaining clothes it touched. Naruto took one last look at the man before maneuvering around him and grabbed the still useful kunai, which allowed the corpse of the war hawk to fall and make a rather grotesque squish when it flopped on the floor. Naruto pocketed the kunai, and turned back towards the remaining council. I hope his example will dissuade any more attempts upon those important to me. I am still half human, but if you dare to endanger any of them you will be dealing with the demon you always thought I was. Naruto warned, the threatening undertone clearly understood. Anbu, get this traitor out of my sight. Sarutobi ordered. As the Anbu did the duty, Naruto spoke up. Now that my reason to remain is gone, I will be leaving Konoha, sayonara. He stated, while walking towards Natsumi. Oi, what about our bargain? I testified for you. The Oto Junin shouted angrily. Gomen Junin-san, I forgot, Ka-san. Naruto shouted, getting the attentions of both Kushina and Chum, though Kushina looked back down towards the floor saddened when she saw Naruto staring directly at Chum before he threw a kunai at her which she caught easily. Happy hunting. Naruto finished with a devilish smirk after he went over and released the Junin from his bonds. What do you mean by that? The man asked, slightly frightened, by being completely surrounded by enemy shinobi. It's mean you should start running. Naruto answered coldly. But you said you'd release me. And I have, but did you honestly think you'd get away from them? He questioned while pointing to the council and a ferally smiling Inuzuka Chum with the kunai glinting dangerously in her hand. As I said, I suggest you start running. The Junin began to sweat, and wanted to curse the Hanyu but knew if he was to survive running was his only option. He staggered up to his feet before he shot through the opened doors, and not 10 seconds later Chum followed with a growl so vicious it even scared Naruto, because it was the growl of a vengeful mother. Now, I have finished the last business I have here, sayonara. He concluded before Natsumi and himself disappeared in a swirl of red and purple flames. Their rather abrupt exit caused many to question everything they just heard and witnessed. Anbu. Sarutobi yelled when the shock of Naruto's leaving left him. The remaining Anbu appeared before him. Gather all remaining Anbu and Junin you can, and get to the gates. You are to prevent Naruto and his companion from leaving before myself and the council talk with him. Use any means necessary excluding lethal force, however leave physical submission for the last possible option. I don't want an unnecessary bloodbath on our hands, understood? He ordered. Hi Hokage-sama. They chorused out, before disappearing. Sarutobi sighed before turning sternly to the remaining council who was still whispering about the recent events. I do believe we have a few things to discuss pertaining to Naruto. He began, getting several nods. Very well, let us begin before we lose this chance. He finished before the meeting continued on about many topics pertaining to Naruto. With Naruto and Natsumi, the demon pair appeared in front of the Inuzuka compound, and knocked on the door. So how was she? Natsumi asked out of nowhere, while waiting for someone to answer the door. What do you mean? I can smell her all over you Naru-kun, so like I said how was she? She answered with her hands on her hips. You could just look for yourself, instead of asking me. He retorted quickly. She huffed indignantly. That's true I could, but we all want privacy, and this is something I wouldn't delve into for that reason. Hypocrite, he smirked, making her pout. Mama, fine she was exactly how I thought she'd be, happy. He questioned. Not really, she confessed. Naruto chuckled and shook his head, before cupping her chin in his thumb and pointer finger and gave her a soft kiss. Gomen, but you know I will not compare my mates when it comes to their performance in bed. You both are too different in your personalities to be able to compare. But if you must know, both of you are better lovers than I could have imagined. You both have boss I fantasize about, and would ravish you every second of every day if I could. He assured before kissing her again, before biting her bottom lip teasingly making her softly Is that an acceptable answer my Benny Kiss-I? He whispered against her lips making her shiver. You're getting a little too good at that Foxy-sama. She huskily whispered back, before a deliberate cough interrupted them. Mind not making a scene on my doorstep? Hannah said with a smirk, a backpack over her shoulder, before moving forward and pulling Naruto into a kiss as well. We ready? Just have to go to the mansion before we go. He answered with a perverted smirk on his face, thanks to being able to taste both his mates on his lips, which made him imagine several scenes with all three of them involved. The three shunted away towards the mansion, and quickly arrived not long after. Naruto released the security seals before they entered the house. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.